Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of the Young and Foolish podcast. And as you can see, Lorenzo is not here with us. Um, I guess we all know about him and sleep. So that is probably why he is not here right now. Quite unfortunate, but we should have him back for the next episode. At least we hope. But yeah, for today's topic, we're actually going to be talking about denormalization of social norms and kind of the perspective of an outsider. And really, what I mean by this is, well, as an example, culture shock, right? It's really just recognizing the social norms of a different place because you have an outside perspective. So, with that in mind, really what I want to talk about is kind of recognizing the social norms within our own society and culture. We could talk about the alternatives of them, maybe how it is in some other places, or just other possibilities that might not even exist in other places, and also whether or not some of the social norms, quote unquote, should be changed, as well as maybe how they could be changed, how these social norms could be denormalized, right? So to start off, we don't have to go into any of these if you don't want to, but just to point out some of the norms that I have recognized, whether of other societies or here, but just based on some of the stuff we talked about before. There was one episode where we talked about how smoking is kind of really normal and common in so many places of the world, whereas here it's not. And we brought up how someone smokes, you don't necessarily, the typical person isn't necessarily going to be really judgmental of it, but there is going to be a little bit of judgment, be like, oh, bruh, he smokes and something like that. A bit of subtle, a bit, not very intense, but that is something that exists, right? And then we've also talked about, maybe in the same episode, about how protesting is normal in so many places, but it's not in other places. And also the frequency of the protest and how the protests are done are incredibly different. And as an outsider looking in and learning about that, or seeing it in person especially, it's definitely a bit of a shock and kind of surprising of how, oh, this is normal, this is what's done like regularly, right? So those are just a couple that we've talked about already, and we could get into that more if you want to. But other ones that I haven't brought up in this particular context, but we have talked about. One is car dependency, which is absolutely huge in North America, and it's extremely normalized. While in other places, based on the way cities are designed, based on the overall culture, and just I guess maybe even people's philosophy and outlook, there's definitely more focus on walkability, on bicycle infrastructure, on public transport, and the other just alternatives to relying on a car for every single thing you do, even the most basic things, right? And just thinking about past conversations I've had with other people, there's this kind of idea of within the culture, how people set goals, or how in certain culture there seems to be a lack of goals, right? And then in certain neighborhoods and places, some of the problems you see is kind of a derivative of that being normal, right? So we could definitely go into that, but also just thinking about where I grew up, it's definitely very normal for people to go on vacation, even though when you look at it from a broader point of view, especially the trips people go on, going abroad, going to all these resorts and all these type of things, like taking it from a more broad perspective and just trying to have other way of looking at it, you recognize that it's actually really privileged, right? And then so many people don't do that in other places, even in neighborhoods that are not too far away, just based on the socioeconomic, aspect, right? It's just not viable for them to do that. So there are just a lot of different things you could get into, but just recognizing social norms and how there are alternatives to it, and looking at whether it should be changed and how, if we were to denormalize it, how that could be done. So, are there any other examples you want to bring up now? Are any of the ones I talked about really interesting to you and you want to get into, Raymond?
Um. I mean, there's some where I can kind of like see the differences in, like, let's say like North America compared to China.
Hmm.
So like for I see like car dependencies. That's a big one. Because although we have trains, it's very like here in Ontario, it's
Hmm.
not very well thought out. Um, Whereas, in China you could take the subway to you know, like any city, right?
Hmm.
It's quick, it's efficient, and a lot of people tend to use it for work.
Hmm.
And that helps with uh that helps with like the pollution problem too, because it encourages people to take public transit. Another topic, another topic that kind of got me thinking is the man, bro, what? Oh yeah, the smoking thing. The smoking thing is a big
Hmm.
one. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, because some countries, the smoking's normal, right? Or
Hmm.
yeah, like, bro, you got like kids smoking and it's seen normal. But here, I feel like there's a really strong stigma to it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's kind of strange because it went from smoking as like a normal behavior, as in like, a good thing, to, oh damn, like, oh, he's smoking,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And that type of culture shift just hasn't really happened in many other places in the world.
yeah.
And let's just focus on those 2 points before we move on to others. So, with what you're talking about, at first, the train system, especially like when you look at China, absolutely the high speed rail connecting literally all the different cities and regions of China, and also just within a city, subways and that type of public transport is also, well, depending on the city, but compared to here, it's quite well done,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then this, you could say the same thing about places like Japan, which is notorious for having just incredible train system, rail system connecting the entire country, as well as how people get to work every day from different parts of the same city, especially within a huge metropolitan area like Tokyo, right? And then you can also look at how it is in for my own personal experience. I've been into Italy, right? And then I would say that traveling by train is extremely viable and accessible, and quite frankly pretty convenient. And compared to driving or compared to taking flights, trains, especially high speed rail that exists, is literally a better option because it's more convenient, it's more comfortable, and when you're there you could literally get work done because you could have Wi-Fi, whether that is just from data or it's I don't know if it's free, but I'm pretty sure there are paid options. But usually, I think people just use data because phone plans are really cheap, and there might be segments, especially if there are tunnels, where that doesn't work. But for the most part, when you're just in the train, that is gonna work fine, right? So it's convenient, it is accessible, and when you could just be there and enjoy yourself, whether that is working on stuff, whether that is um, video chatting with people. Uh, and yeah, it's just a really great alternative. And like you're talking about, in terms of climate change, which we brought up multiple times in different episodes, having those options is definitely much more helpful than using planes for domestic travel, or just relying on car for all these things. Like it's kind of ridiculous that people would drive to buy their groceries when for so many people around the world that's almost like a daily thing, where every other day type of thing, where they go to the grocery store or even the public market before or after work, just sometime during the day as a part of their commute, right? Like if they're if it's walkable, or you could do it with cycling. You could get to work, and on the way or on the way back, you could pick up stuff. You could pick up your groceries. If you take the train to work and working a different part, well, guess what? You could get to the train station very easily without driving, and then on the way back, there's probably grocery stores where you could pick it up. So even if you're taking like trains for a longer kind of travel, it is still possible, right? So they're just lifestyle differences that come with car dependency, and how that is a norm here, right? And I feel like there's something else I wanted to bring up when it comes to this, but can't think of it right now.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Like, I feel like a lot of other countries, like the grocery example, like you have the marketplace literally right in the center, right?
Mhm.
Of like the most, common living places. So it's like a few minutes walk, or, maybe 10, 20-minute walk from like your house. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of those places are really well planned out, whereas in comparison, maybe here, I feel like here it's more planned around cars.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I feel like it's more planned around like cars, right? Like being able to commute like with a vehicle, and that's why like you see so many cities with literally like stores everywhere. It's like super, spread out. And the thing is, like, if you want to go to this store, oh, maybe you gotta drive 20 minutes, right?
Mhm.
But then if you want to go to this other store, like, if it just takes a lot. And yeah, not big fan of climate change.
Mhm.
um I feel like I don't know what they're doing exactly. I know like a lot of countries have made a policy to ban gas cars,
Mhm.
right, within a certain year, but I don't know if it's just the production of it or ban the use of it in general. But I'm pretty sure it's just the production of it.
Yeah, I think for a lot of places, the production of it. But then you also have cities that are literally banning the use of cars in certain parts as well. Paris being one example, and we have talked about this. Um, and there are also other less known examples I can't think of off the top of my mind. But even outside of climate change and the other benefits we already talked about, what you're saying about how you know it's a commute aspect, right? That's time where people could be spending doing other things, and when you're driving you can't really be doing much, maybe listen to music, maybe talking to your friend if someone's actually there, right? Here most people drive by themselves in a car, right? And like that's a lot of time just spent driving. It's kind of crazy. Is that really the best use of your time? And when a city is designing a way where you don't have to commute that way, and it could be more efficient, and where you could actually do it with physical stuff like walking or cycling, as opposed to just sitting in a car, it's also better for your health, right? And also, for a lot of suburbs, especially, there are strip malls, and a lot of these places you go, right, you literally have to drive there. That's not a place where people are. That's not the place to be. That's a place
Mm.
to pass through. If you want to get there, You literally have to purposely get in your car and drive there, right? And economically speaking, when they look at statistics, it's not good. It's not good for those cities, for those areas, right? Because what you want is a mixed use kind of spaces. What you want is a bit higher density spaces and places where people can actually be. Because guess what? People are going to be in a place and there are shops there. If people are going to spend their money, people are going to consume, and that's going to be better for the economy. And it's also going to be more convenient for people living there, and less commute, which is more efficient and better use of their time, right? So there are all these other benefits as well. So health, economy, more efficient and better use of their time. And obviously, with the climate change and the environment aspect, it is huge. And overall, when you take that together, it's just so much better for people's well-being, right? And it does seem like there is more awareness and emphasis on this even in North America. But how that's going to play out and what changes will be made, it's very difficult to predict, I guess, now. But the last thing I want to talk about here is that what you're talking about with the Trains Ontario is really just Via Rail, right? And Via Rail is pretty notorious for being bad, whether that is just it being late or just there's so many stuff that's bad about it, but it's pretty slow, and there really isn't much reason why anyone would take that. It's not like the cheapest thing either. So it's really like, I don't know how they're in business. But, it totally makes sense for North America, especially Canada, to not have continental wide rail, just because how big the place is and how kind of small population is in certain places. So it's almost like, hey, you're really gonna do that? Like, it's literally better to take a flight. Most people are not gonna drive that distance either. Like, your plane is probably gonna be the best option. To like the usage and everything considered, I don't think it makes sense to spend the money for the entire continental wide or even just coast to coast type stuff. But there are a few routes that I think make sense. And one is the Ontario and Quebec area, where the major cities connecting all the places starting from places like, I guess, I don't know, Windsor or Sarnia, places that are pretty much that's close to the border, right on the south west of Ontario, going all the way to, maybe Quebec City, right? Like, there's so many places there, whether that is London, Guelph, Toronto, Hamilton, Kingston, obviously Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City. Like, there are just all these places, as well as smaller places along the way, with pretty large populations that's going to use this for traveling, for work, and it just makes sense to have good option. Like, it's totally viable and it's totally beneficial for people if it was done. I definitely think that is one route that could be drastically improved and make sense, and that route could even be connected into the States potentially, depending on what other routes exist, because there is Buffalo right there is Detroit right there, then from there within the state of New York, and you look at Ohio, look at Michigan, like there are different places that could be connected to. So on the East Coast in general, it's definitely possible and viable to do something like that. And then the other route I would say kind of makes sense is a route going down West Coast, just because, well, first of all, I like the expansion of the Skytrain system in Vancouver. I would like to see that being expanded even more, going into places like Abbotsford and whatnot. Having options to go straight to Vancouver all the way from like South Surrey, where Lorenzo and I are from. But for trains, I think it would make sense to have passenger trains, solid rail system connecting the West Coast, because there, many cities, many places were along that I guess line downwards, right? The straight vertical line there that people could use. You're talking about major cities like Vancouver, Seattle, uh, you know, uh, Portland, Oregon. You have all the different cities in California. San Francisco, Los Angeles, all the way down to San Diego. But even other places like Sacramento could be connected. Um, there are just a lot of smaller cities along the line that could be stops as well. So I think that line is also viable and makes sense, right? So I'm not gonna be here and try to promote some outrageous continental wide system, because I don't think that is realistic or
Yeah.
viable to have. I don't think people benefit that much from it. And even the high speed rail system in China, it's like, okay, it's awesome to have. It's incredible technology, but for some of the routes, it's like, how many people are using it? How beneficial is it? So, like, that was part of it, is almost kind of like, hey, we could do this and this is impressive, and just kind of showing off. And then for certain parts of it, it's like extremely efficient and useful for people. But there are parts of it that's almost just kind of like, well, you're just kind of doing it. So like, the two routes I kind of like and I think make sense for North America are those.
Yeah, no, I agree. Honestly, like when I say like more like a subway system or like a better train system, or in Vancouver's case, like a Skytrain system, I feel like it's more like mainly for like the provinces, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I feel like if you have like a well-made rail system within a province, like you could easily just travel to the borders to the other provinces, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, like you said, right? Toronto, like the GTA area, Hamilton, St. Catharines, Windsor, London, like all those places, I feel like it'd be so much easier if it was just connected by like a rail, like a good rail system, right? So like a train system, because it like it is also like you could put one like right next to the water,
Mm-hmm.
right next to the lake, and that will connect basically all of these places with one, right? But that coast one, I really like that idea. That's really nice. I could see it being like very useful, and I could see a lot of people using it and like kind of using it for like daily lives and just for traveling in
Mm-hmm.
general or commuting. But I do want to see the SkyTrain system being implemented to more places,
Mm-hmm.
um, in Richmond, Vancouver, and stuff like that. Because I thought they expanded to like White Rock, or no, like Surrey, like South Surrey or something.
No, the expansion was to Coquitlam. That was the extension, and then they're extending those more. I forget what they're doing, but one of them is trying to get to UBC, but that one's gonna take a while. But I don't know
Mm,
what other ones are confirmed, because in Surrey it's literally just Surrey Central. It doesn't go beyond that, right? And then in Richmond, just those few places. One that's going to the airport, and the other one that's kind of like the Lansdowne. And other parts of Richmond are not actually connected either, but it kind of makes sense, I guess, even though
mm-hmm,
some routes might be useful. Uh, yeah, but overall, Vancouver is actually really good in terms of public transportation and walkability, especially actual Vancouver downtown, as well as the Kitsilano area, and maybe some other neighborhoods. But uh, yeah, in North America overall, it's probably one of the best places in terms of all of those things. And I do
mm-hmm.
like the fact that they are extending stuff and expanding the system. That's definitely a good sign. And I love what you're talking about with connecting these other parts of Ontario, because yeah, if it goes to St. Catharines, if it goes to the Niagara area, just think about how much better the tourism is gonna be if it's easy for people to take trips like that, right? And also, a lot of people from all those places would love to just go to Toronto for a day trip or even for a weekend trip, and to be able to do it using a system like that is fantastic, right? Especially for younger people who spend a lot of time doing stuff themselves, but at the same time aren't old enough or wealthy enough to have a car to drive and do stuff like that. Well, they're able to just live their life kind of the same way, except do it in other places as well, right? In further places. So if they want to go see a concert in Toronto, well, that's not going to be that difficult now. You don't have to rely on, I don't know, your parents or someone to drop you off or drive you or take the trip with you. You don't have to think about, oh, I have to get all this money together to buy a car or something like that to be able to do those things. And then you could look at how, hey, well, in these European places, you literally have pretty young kids traveling to other places on the weekend to watch a football game or a concert or to go to like some really cool museum, right? Those things are completely viable for them if they want to do that, and some of them do. And just like I'm sure how some people here would love to have that opportunity as well. So there are just a lot of benefits to it. And part of that is benefiting the economy, and that's going to be a huge motivation for, I guess, companies and governments, right? So even if they don't want to look at the other benefits, well, that one, having it make sense financially is huge, right? Because that's kind of how the world works in many ways. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that you brought out tourism, because tourism is like one of, Canada's like biggest factors when it comes to economy, right?
Mhm.
So I think that would be really good. And yeah, I feel like a lot of the activities or traveling itself is so inaccessible, especially for younger people.
Mhm.
Like I remember when like like my friends and I would like bus, right, to because I like the Go Bus. The Go Bus is pretty good. Um, like it's cheap way of travel, plus like it's comfortable and enough. Um, but yeah, but that's yeah, and like yeah, I don't know, but other than that, like I remember just busing all the way to Toronto, and when like luckily I don't think we were in traffic too often, but that's also another thing. Like with busing, like the traffic is just it's too much, man.
Mhm.
Like, cause you like instead of like an hour trip, right?
Yeah.
Like usually like it's an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Mhm.
Like depends where, but it takes like 2-3 hours because of the traffic. So you either have to wake up really early or go at the end of the day, which no one wants to go because you want to
Mhm.
go there for the day. So it kind of just you know kind of just makes things like a mess.
Yeah.
The train though, you pay the same price as like a bus ticket, right? But train's kind of weird. Instead of connecting it to like Union Station, like the main like bus terminal
Mhm.
downtown Toronto, like the most popular area, it kind of puts you in a weird place. So then you have to figure your way out of that, and it's like, bro, why?
That's
Like,
hilarious.
oh my god. So you kind of have like trade-offs, like like either
Yeah.
take the bus, Heart of Toronto, or take the train farther from
Mhm.
that, and then you gotta take the bus anyways in Toronto, which also has traffic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty low amount. Just kind of shows poor design. But a few points to touch on with what you said. One is that with tourism, especially international people come in, instead of having to rent a car or figure out what is required for you to rent a car and all that, and the money you spend renting a car, if those were in place, if those public transport system were in place, it'll make stuff just much more easier, right? Just think about Vancouver. You could, you know, come out of the airport, take the Skytrain, go to Richmond, go to Vancouver, just like that. And within the buses are actually pretty good. And then, you're able to go to all these places just like that pretty easily. And if that is extended in a way where you could visit a place that is famous worldwide, such as Niagara Falls, conveniently through a train ride, like, hey, it's definitely gonna help with tourism for sure. And then the other
Mhm.
things, one is uh, yeah, the traffic thing. So true, right? So with trains, you kind of bypass that for sure. If it's designed well, you should be able to get to where you want to go instead of some weird place. Uh, but yeah, traffic in the, I guess, the major kind of centers of Ontario is awful. Look at the highway. What's it called? 401, right?
Yeah.
The amount of lanes and then how filled it is, it just looks so messy. It looks so bad. And if
Yeah.
when you're actually there, especially during a time where people are actually on the road, it's like, oh my goodness, what is this? Like it takes so long. It's ridiculous. But with
Mhm.
traffic, one thing to keep in mind is that, like, yeah, traffic is bad, but traffic is bad partially because of you, because you are a part of the traffic, that it's literally because there are too many cars, right? There are too many people on the road. You could expand it, but what that has shown is that, like, hey, it's gonna solve the problem for a little bit, and then what happens is uh, more people are going to use it, more people are going to be willing to drive it because they think it's better, and then the problem still exists, and sometimes it's even
Mhm.
worse, right? You could see this all over the world, including China, including 401, including places in the States, right? Very clear examples of how expanding the highway and adding more lanes does not solve the problem, at least not permanently, because the problem is that there are too many cars. With buses, the amount of people that could fit into a bus and the amount of space that takes up is much more efficient, right? If you're going to talk about efficiency, if you're going to talk about the environmental factors, it makes so much sense, right? And if your life is you're able to live your life conveniently using those things as well as just walking, that's a lot less financial stress on you, because cars cost a lot, whether that is the price you're actually paying to get a car, whether that is mortgage, if you're taking loans, or that is the insurance prices, insurance costs in BC especially. Oh my goodness, right? Just costs so
Damn.
much. There's obviously maintenance costs. There's possibly unexpected repair costs, and fuel is so expensive right now, right?
Mhm.
So the financial aspect on a personal level is also definitely questionable, and we have to keep in mind that cars are depreciating. They're not an asset, right? They're a liability in many sense, right? So, like, for people who need it and require it as a tool for them to actually live conveniently and do their everyday things, yeah, okay, it makes sense. But if a place is designed with walkability, with bike infrastructure, with public transport system, and all these things in mind, then the average person and what they need to do on a day-to-day basis, they most likely don't actually need a car, and that's going to take that financial burden off of them, right? If they do want a car, it's going to be because certain unusual jobs that they have to do, because where they have equipments have to carry around that requires something like a car, or because they're really into cars. They see them as more of a hobby type of thing, or maybe they have hobbies that requires a car to do, such as road tripping, such as going camping, or those type of stuff, or they see it as more of a luxury item, like people who spend a lot of money on a watch. So it wouldn't be because they need it as an everyday tool. Then that's a completely different way of looking at it, for sure. So I think we talked a lot about that, but let's just go into smoking.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, so here's what I find weird. So like we've moved in Western culture, we've moved from smoking cigarettes, cigars, whatever, right, as like being the social norm, into that being stigmatized, into being bad, and really just looked down upon, into now newer generation of vaping, which is like, I'd say it's less harmful overall, but at the same time you're still taking in the nicotine, right? So you're doing it for the same reasons, like with uh like same chemical, but it's often like it depends. I feel like vaping is very like 50-50. Maybe a little bit like maybe a little bit different than 50-50, but I feel like you either like, okay, so majority of people I know, they vape, but like, yeah, no, like they vape, but then but I do know some people who don't like it, right? But that's very few in comparison to the amount of people who actually do. Like, they might not have their own, but they will use like others, or like at like a party setting, right? Like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's become very popular over the past few years, and um, it's been here for a while though, right? I remember the first time I hit one was in fucking grade 8, Semiamu.
Wow.
Yeah,
Huh.
I'm pretty sure it was during like life skills. Like, we were in like the cooking class, and Sabrina had the fucking what do you call it? The vape pen,
Okay.
right? But I'm pretty sure it was more of like a flavor thing. I don't think it had like much nicotine as of now.
Uh-huh.
Cause now, like, bro, now, yeah, I feel like once it got popular, the nicotine levels like went way high. But yeah, I feel like back then I was confused. I was like, bro, like, you smoke it out of a pen? Like, how does that work? Um, but yeah, no. So that was the first time.
Those must
But
have been like the early days. 'Cause I don't remember
mhm,
those being very popular.
no, I don't think so. But yeah, like, cause that was the first time I've ever seen it, and it was the first time I seen it for a while, right? I didn't see it show up until like grade, I'd say like 2-3 years later.
Okay.
When it like really hit the fan, like with like Jewel and all that stuff.
So you're saying
So
Sabrina was a trendsetter? Is that what we're coming to the conclusion of?
Wait, no, bro, I don't know. It still surprises me. Like, it's still like, I still question it. I'm like, bro, like, oh, why and how? Okay, here's what I think. Maybe within the culture, like hookah and like, shisha, it's more common, right? Okay, well, those have been around for a while.
Yeah.
right? So I guess like maybe like for that like culturally like it's normal, and they got the insiders, information about these things, like a portable shisha. Like think about it. But yeah, so then I guess it became just really popular one year, and when it blew up, everyone was like doing it. And the thing is, like everyone within like my age group, right? Like our age group, like you would see the influence in semi too, right?
And so many
So
people.
yeah, so like it's crazy, like literally across the country, boom, just like that. I feel like that has to do with social media as well,
Mhm.
right? Like very heavily influenced. And then once social media influences, a group of people, group influences another group, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was crazy. And a lot of people I knew like started vaping. Originally, like I didn't really find it appealing. I don't know, like I was like, yeah, it's vaping, whatever. Um, like I found it dumb,
Mhm.
but but as time goes on, yeah. And then I don't know. I never really I didn't get my own in high school, and I only got it in university, where it was very popular, or very common. I'd say not popular. I'd say
Yeah,
common
it definitely feels
to
pretty
have.
common at Western as well. Yeah.
hmm but yeah, I think smoking's come a weird long way.
Mhm.
Like transitioning from, like tobacco and like the traditional, cigarettes, to now more of like vaporized
Mhm.
like chemicals like nicotine. But yeah, I don't know. But then you see this like banned in other countries though, where smoking is allowed but vaping isn't.
Yeah, that is very interesting as well.
hmm
Just the overall way
Um,
of people looking at it. So like I do not vape. I have never even tried vaping. I also don't smoke, but I think have had tried cigarette before when I was actually really really young. It was kind of
yeah.
thinking about it was kind of weird because I was like really young, and there's a guy who worked with my dad, uh, and we're just out in the courtyard kind of place. And and so you want to try? I was like, okay, because I was like a little kid, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And I was coughing a lot. That's what I remember. And I think maybe quite a few years later, when I was still a kid, I might had a other puff or some other setting, kind of similar to that. But
hmm
yeah, I don't smoke, I don't vape, and I've never tried vaping, and I don't know the history of vaping. So when you're talking about the level of like nicotine that increased, I had no idea about that. That is actually pretty interesting to me. I
hmm
could kind of see how you know why people are into it now more than before, because chemically that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, smoking other places is still very popular, still very normal, whereas here there is a stigma. The level of judgment kind of varies, but there is a stigma to it for sure. And
Yeah.
in places like even in Italy, I've seen kids really young, maybe 12, 13 on the streets, like smoking cigarettes. It's like, oh bro, what? All right, that's a bit of culture shock to me. And
hmm
then back here, you really don't see that. Like even people smoking in general, it's I wouldn't say it's rare, but it's certainly uncommon. And kid smoking, that is rare. That is rare, period, right?
hmm
And one of the reasons why smoking is kind of still seen is because there are designated areas for people to do it, right? So, and then you walk by, it's like, okay, well, that's kind of where they're supposed to do it. So if you're gonna walk by places like that, you're gonna see people. But That's the other thing. In other places, it seems like it's normal for people to kind of smoke almost anywhere, whereas here it's kind of very restricted in where you can. But the transition into vaping is
Mm-hmm.
something that is actually very interesting. How that became normal, because it is kind of popular worldwide, even though there are places that's not as popular, and places where, like you said, have it banned, which is also kind of like, huh, makes you think, right?
But
Especially when
smoking's
smoking is
allowed.
allowed, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it is
Yeah.
a weird thing, but to kind of know kind of the transition, to be aware of that, and to know how it is seen, how smoking and vaping are seen worldwide, and what the norm is, definitely gives you additional perspective to it, and kind of allows you to question it more, right? And kind of see
Yeah.
what are the alternatives, like what are potential problems, like should we kind of try to denormalize this thing and recognize aspects that aren't really good about it, and if we were to do that, how would that be done, right? So just being able to recognize the other perspectives on it, I think is pretty important.
Yeah. Honestly, like, yeah, because I don't really travel much back to China often. I've been back maybe like twice
Mm.
actually ever since I moved to Canada. But like the biggest shock to me was, like it's not like the areas, like the rural areas where people like pee on the streets, because like you have little kids like being held up to pee
Mm-hmm,
on
mm-hmm.
the streets. Um, yeah, that's kind of nostalgic. Think I've done it many times. Um, but yeah, I think I think the biggest like culture shock when I went back was actually like smoking. Um, cause like you would be like at dim sum like restaurants, right, early in the morning, and everyone's smoking in there, like legit, like majority of people be smoking inside the restaurant, and that had me shocked. I was like, damn. Because we were like family
Mm-hmm.
friends, and when they like lit up a cigarette inside, I was like, "Yo, someone gonna stop this dude, or or what's going
But
on?"
no, it's a normal
And
thing, right?
yeah, I was like, "Yo, what?" Everyone's smoking like, and they offered me one. I was like, "Nah, nah, 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 I'm good, I'm
Yeah.
good." Um, yeah, and I feel like it's heavily influenced by families too,
Mm.
because I know my family is very against smoking. Um, like I'd say like especially my grandpa. So like I think, and then like my aunts and uncles like kind of get it from
Mm.
him. So like like whenever we see someone smoking, like we were also like, oh, like that's not
Mm.
good. But if they do it, they do it. Just because like they're used to it, I guess. Um, but yeah, like that also reminds me, like I had my first cigarette when I was super young in China as
Yeah,
well.
that's the thing that happened to a lot of
Uh,
kids. Like, for some reason, I'm
yeah,
like, what?
no, bro, it's fine, man, man. Like I had this like friend, like when I was super young. I think I was in like first
Mm.
grade, and he was in like second or third. Um, so like we were legit like 7 or 8, right? And he picks, no, like younger than that, like 6 or 5. He picks up this like cigarette butt off the fucking
Bruh.
floor, like, yeah, half a cigarette. He's like, yo, come, and he basically like lights it up and like puts it in my mouth, and he's like, okay, now suck it. I was like, fuck. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what is it? He's like, no, 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 just do it. I was like, okay. So I got so like I was confused. I was like, fuck, okay. So like I took it, right? I gave it a big puff, and then nah, that was it. That was it. I started coughing. I started coughing. I was like, what the fuck? So I went home, right? And then later that night, nah, that was it. That was end of my athletic career. Bro, legit had like the worst asthma attack
Oh
ever.
no.
Fuck. Bro, it was bad, man. And like, yeah, no. But and then that kind of like maybe be like, okay, drugs is
Mm.
bad, you know. I can't be doing drugs, nothing. But fast forward, we out here.
Same story with the vaping. I was like,
Yeah.
nah, but then. Uh,
But it's cool, it's you could blow
so
O's and
first of all,
stuff. It's
that
pretty
story,
cool.
what the fuck? Secondly, pause because you said he put it in my mouth and told me to suck it.
Okay, no.
Let's not let that just completely go over
Oh,
because very questionable
no.
wording there.
Oh no. I've had practice. It's chill.
Uh,
Fuck,
but
man.
yeah,
Nah, nah,
yeah. I think
that's very
smoking,
sus.
especially smoking at a young age, is even a bigger problem in places like Indonesia. I've heard it's like terrible there.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to the other thing I want to bring up, and that is kind of the way people eat. And what I mean by this is kind of, well, there's a few things I notice that are kind of really pointing out social norms. But one thing that I really want to focus on, I'll get to that at the end, but I'll start off by saying that you definitely notice how people in different parts of the world eat at different times and maybe even eat different amount of meals, right? And that is kind of a social norm that exists that without recognizing it, without seeing it, especially, you kind of don't really think about. You just kind of, oh, this is just how people eat. This is just when people eat, and that's that. So that's one thing that's one part of the social norm. But the part that I really want to focus on is how I feel like here in North America, it seems like people don't really take their time with their meal, right? So you'll see people either eating on the go, you'll see people just quickly rushing and just eating whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, eating whatever as opposed to having a proper meal. Secondly, eating it really quickly and just trying to move on with their day or something like that. You also see, I think, a lot less of people really sitting down together and having a meal. So even if the food is prepared, you definitely see a lot of people, maybe taking a plate or something and then just going to the room or even waiting until later to eat or whatever it is, as opposed to sitting down together. And you also see kind of a lot of people not really, taking it seriously, actually cooking a meal, right? It's almost just put together a random sandwich or just something really, really light and just chill and nothing
Mm-hmm.
like a proper dish, right? And I would say that you also see a culture of meal prepping becoming pretty popular, but when in reality, in many ways, that is just eating leftovers, right? So the culture of actually cooking a meal and sitting down together, eating it with people who you live with, especially your family, right? And actually eating without rushing. I feel that is uncommon here now in North America, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
normalized. All the stuff I described, eating on the go, meal prepping, and just kind of just all the different things I described, I feel like normalized aspect of the society and culture here now. That's kind of my feel of it. When in other cultures, it definitely feels like people take it more seriously. They take their food more seriously. They take the time to eat it without rushing, and that's kind of a big deal and big aspect of social life for them. Actually, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a commonality that you see in places that take it more seriously. So yeah, that's one social norm here that I wanted to point out that I think is kind of weird and without outside perspective, and just oh, that's just how people live, right? That's just how people eat. But then it's like when you do know the alternatives to it and you think about it, then so you start to questioning why people are doing this and whether it's a quote unquote good thing, right? Because it feels like other ways of doing it have a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I think I think like the eating culture here in North America, like Western, like how like it's westernized and stuff. I think it has a lot to do with it like being um I guess like made around like the typical 9 to 5 jobs, right? Like, so I think career based, it's very important. So like the on the go like type of lifestyle where oh like you gotta get a quick bite and you gotta get back to work type of deal is very is very big, and I feel like it's seen as like in certain cases or like maybe like a while back it's seen as like okay like
Mm-hmm.
hardworking, right? Damn, like bro, that person's hardworking, bro. Like just quick bite and like right back to work or right back to doing whatever. Like, and you don't really see family meals as often, like community wise and stuff like that. For in that aspect, um, I feel like just because it's gone to a point where like like you don't really have time for
Mm-hmm.
that, right? Like let's say like because like a bunch of jobs require different things, right? Let's say like parents, like one works in the mornings and one works at night. You don't get to have that proper meal with like the family all together, so you're more used to being alone, right? So then when you're being alone, you kind of get used to eating by yourself. And even when like there is time together, like typically like it's not spent together,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's more spent like kind of separately. So I feel like that's kind of normalized. And the time frame in which in which people eat as well is also around work
Mm-hmm.
life, right? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Dinner after work, lunch, drink like during your lunch break, and then breakfast, like a quick bite before
Mm-hmm.
work, right? So I see that, being heavily influenced by like careers, the white collar job type of deal. Another thing is also how people eat, as in like, seeing people eat with their
Oh yeah.
hands
Mm-hmm.
compared to like a knife and a fork, right? It is a shock to a lot of people, right? You have people like, yo, like that guy's eating with his hands, like at school or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? But that's just how they eat at home.
Yep.
And, that's just how they eat, like culturally. So, like, an example is like
Mm-hmm.
India, right? So, like, a lot of Indian, like from my past experience, like, my friends, they, like at home and stuff, like, they do eat with their hands, and, like, the meal is kind of like made for that style eating. So like that's totally normal. But then when like once you like go out in like a public space, like a school or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? People kind of like depending on how like multicultural or how experienced like people are with other cultures within the city, or you know but if it's like a predominantly like more like Western type of community, then you're gonna get some like looks as like surprise. It could be like
Mm-hmm.
disgust. It could be like confusion. Like, you know. But yeah, like yeah, it's kind of weird. But then you also get like so like like with my white friends, like if we go out for
Mm-hmm.
pho, right? Um, or like any like Asian restaurant, like Japanese ramen or whatever. Usually they don't get like a lot of places they don't provide them with chopsticks just because they assume they
Yeah.
can't use it, right? So it's also like it's also the opposite
Mm-hmm.
as well, from other cultures to Western culture, where they would assume like, oh, like Westerners, can't use chopsticks, give them a
Yeah.
fork, or, you know. So yeah, like you kind of get, like you kind of experience these things like over time, and like I guess like you kind of get used
Mm-hmm.
to it, right? Like I don't know, like I feel like some people who aren't really used to it kind of get offended
Mm-hmm.
somehow by it. Like it's like, nah, dude, like why are you offended by how someone
Yeah.
eats, right? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like how people eat, um, and how people view others when they eat, uh, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I feel like it just comes to a lot of like culture shock rather than like any
Yeah.
discrimination, right? But yeah,
But yeah,
that's
but
yeah.
a big part of that is this topic. What we're talking about here is having the perspective of an outsider looking in and recognizing the social norms that exist, right? And then that's
Hmm.
some of the things that we recognize for sure. Because when you only know this one perspective, when you're only familiar with then what's normal here, right? Then these aspect of that culture shock and whatnot um, gives you those reactions, makes people have like, oh, what's going on, right? But then when we are able to see, okay, that's a cultural thing, that is actually how a lot of people in the world eat, and all those things are actually normal there, right? Not only are you better in terms of cultural humility and cultural understanding and those things, but also you're able to question the way that you do things. You're able to question what's normal here, and you'd be like, why do we do it like that? Like, can we learn something from these other things? Are there benefits from doing it a different way, right? So I definitely like what you brought up with kind of how the American capitalism and just corporate influence has on what is done in North America in terms of when people eat and kind of how people don't really take the time, right? Because you could definitely compare it to even now, especially Southern Europe, places like Italy, Portugal, Spain, definitely places where food is it is very normal for people to have very long meals, right? For people to sit down with their friends and just enjoy food together, and that's kind of a very normal thing. It's normal for people there to have meals with their family at least on the weekends together, right? That is definitely more common there than here, even though I think that's probably a decline now, probably because of the reason we're talking about with work, right? And how that influences people. But still, there's a huge difference when you see that and the than what is normal here. And yeah, it's just something to recognize and something to think about because I think there are a lot of benefits from eating without rushing and eating nice meals and eating with your family and your friends and all these aspects of health, of community, of well-being and self-care and all these different aspects to it, right? I think a lot of these things have a lot of benefits to a lot of people. So that's what I want to bring up because I think a lot of people just don't recognize it, right? So that's the thing with social norms, and we've actually talked a lot already, and that's only like what three major aspects that we just kind of pointed out. So we could definitely do other
Mm.
episodes on this as well. There's stuff like beauty standard, for example. There's stuff kind of like I don't know relating to work, right? How work is seen, right? We kind of done an episode on the role of career. I think that's what we called it with Daniel Kim as one episode, but yeah, just kind of how work is seen here and the role it has and what people want to get out of it, that type of thing. We could talk more about that as well. And there's so many other aspects of what is normal here, which is actually, quite different from other parts of the world, or that there are just alternatives out there that exist that are kind of more niche and isn't really popular anywhere, but do exist, right? And we could go into all the other topics as well, because I think there are so many things are normalized here, right? So if you want to talk about seeing it from outside perspective and pointing them out, and also talking about potentially denormalizing them, whether we should, and if we were to, how will we do it, right? And providing some potential solutions, like what we talked about, especially with the car dependency type of thing, because I think we gave some interesting possibilities that are actually, realistic and viable, as opposed to just fantasy and idealistic, right? So yeah, that could be more than one episode, to be honest, but we could definitely do another episode on that. But I think that is gonna be all we're gonna talk about in terms of this for this week. And to end the episode, we'll do a highlights of the week. Why don't you let us know, Raymond?
Injured my back deadlifting.
I would say that's a low light. That's actually pretty rip. Back injuries are one of the worst injuries you could have, because everything kind of requires it.
Yeah, sitting down's hard. Sleeping,
getting up is hard.
Like,
yeah,
bending, anything, man. It's rough, dude. Like putting my shoes on. Oh my god, I took that shit for granted, man. But yeah. Other than that, yeah, not much.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Pretty rip.
Yeah.
My highlight is actually I got a new tattoo. Yep.
Bro, wait, how many new tattoo? How many tattoos have you
I had
had?
one before. I got my first one a month before I graduated high school, and getting the second one a month before I finished undergrad. So the timing is actually pretty interesting as well. Not completely on purpose, but semi on purpose. The first one just kind of worked out because you kind of need to be 18 to get it without any permission, right?
Oh, early birthdays, come on.
And
man.
And so with scheduling, it just didn't work until like a month after my birthday, based on my schedule and as well as the artist's schedule. So it kind of ended up being a month before I graduated high school. And then with this one, part of it is because COVID, it made it hard to actually go ahead and do it. Secondly, just being busy with so many things, kind of hard to find the time actually planning it out. And then also just I had ideas, but I wasn't sold on any idea until a certain point. And then I'm like, okay, I actually really like it. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to go for it. And then during reading week, I'm like, you know what? I like it. I'm sure of it. I know where I want to get it. So let me try to find an artist now that I have some time. And I found an artist here, much cheaper than the one I had before. Well, actually pretty similar in price now, but the other artist kind of gone up because, Vancouver, it's in Gastown, and it's a pretty famous place, relatively speaking, too. So it just made sense. Also, I didn't want to wait till I get back. I'm like, if I want it now and have time, why wait that other few months, So got it actually a couple of weeks now since we weren't able to record last week. So it was, we were recording on the Tuesday. I got it on the Thursday. And then last week, we couldn't. And this week, we're recording on the Wednesday. So it's almost 2 weeks. One more day to 2 weeks.
What tattoo did you get?
It's about the size of my hand, which is also the size of my first tattoo. And it's on the side, rib / oblique, just on the left side. Not too high because when it comes to placement, of tattoos. I don't want to get it somewhere that I'm able to see all the time, and I don't want to get it anywhere that I need a mirror to see. I don't want it in a place that I'm not gonna see. But if I do want to, I could very easily see it without a mirror, right? So that place just made sense, and I wanted this on the other side because I didn't want all my tattoo being on the same side right now. Like I mean, later on, if I get more, which I probably will at some point, like yeah, sure. But the first two tattoo I just have on the same side didn't seem aesthetically as pleasing to me. But the actual design is of Icarus falling. Icarus from Greek mythology, Greek myth. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Okay. How do your parents feel about it?
Actually, they don't know that I have. They don't even know I have my first tattoo. Yeah.
Boom. I was like, yo, wait a second. Cause I told my mom, I was like, yo, what if I get a tattoo? And she was like, I'll
Bro,
disown you.
no.
I was like, bro.
I don't think my parents heard that. You know, I don't think they mind that much. That's more because I don't want to talk about, you know, why or what it means, or talk about how much it cost. You know, I don't really want to have those conversations as opposed to the tattoo itself.
Yeah.
And especially like if they didn't know I have the tattoo for that long, it's probably gonna, you know, they probably don't care as much because they're okay, well, you know what? You got it that long ago. We don't even know about it. It's obviously not that big of a deal. You know, that's kind of what I would imagine as well. But there are just definitely aspects to the conversation I don't want to have. You know, just don't want to explain like, hey, it means this and that. And, you know, I don't want to get into all of that. And I also definitely don't want to get into, hey, I spent that much money on this. And because I know they don't like it. I don't think they mind that much, but they definitely don't like it. They definitely don't support it. Just they're not that strongly against it, right? And to tell them I spent like that much money on it, I don't think that is gonna be that well. And then, like I said, you know, what it means and all of that, I just don't want to go into. You know, that's you know, something more for the podcast and for blog posts. If people want to know, they can. My parents want to read it. If they see it, like it's fine. But like I don't want to talk to them, explain it. Like that's just not something I enjoy doing. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I was surprised. But yeah, bro, we should do like an episode on tattoos and taboos. Boom.
Yeah, there's so many different interesting aspects of tattoos for sure. That's definitely a topic I would enjoy talking about. All right, but yeah, that's gonna be it from us this week. So thank you for listening.